not shy to be on the camera once again. He's a regular on broadcast, a regional winner back home in Australia as well, but we have seen him across the world traveling, trying to fight for all of those CP and prize money opportunities at regional events, piloting Charizard EX.
A Liverpool finalist who then flew all the way back home to then win regional, Mr. Worldwide, traveling everywhere to try and compete, and he looks locked in right now. A very smiley character, loves to have a little laugh, but when he's in these moments, he is able to focus that next level. And on the other side? Yeah,
on the other side, Corentin will be facing up against Brent, of course, with a deck we saw earlier sort of wipe the floor with his opponent. That Dialga V-Star deck, just being able to burst through very quickly, take multiple turns, multiple big knockouts. It's going to be, it could be a quick match, but the way that Brent's kind of built this deck, this isn't a very conventional Charizard EX deck, not by any means. It's got some control elements in there.
It'd be interesting how the fire element of a Charizard deck can be utilized against Dialga. You know, it seems crazy when you're playing fire energy to not be able to hit for weakness, but with Charizard EX being a dark type Pokemon, it doesn't quite work out that way, but you do have Radiant Charizard towards the end, and sometimes those early heat tackles can really set up a nice knockout on the V-Star. So we'll see how that all pans out as they put their prizes out, and round 9 will begin with a tough prizing of Radiant Charizard, but nothing too crazy. And the players are ready to kick off to Super Rod.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, depending on how that resource management will be going forward. We'll have access to just one Super Rod in that deck, but let's see how these players are going to navigate this matchup. Because as I mentioned, it's a bit of an unconventional list from Brent. Playing that Charizard EX deck does have access to things like Airy, you know, that fantastic supporter card that we've highlighted so often. But here we go, we do kick things off here with Brent kicking us off with a Buddy Poffin.
Oh, seeing them all over the hall. Such a good item card. Introducing Temporal Forces, really improving the consistency of these evolving decks. And this first deck check there, you might have seen a little flash of a lightning-type Pokemon in Charizard EX. What's going on there?
Yeah, that Regieleki has been introduced to Brent's version of Charizard EX. Has that fantastic attack, electromagnetic sonar for a colorless energy, where you can put a trainer card from your discard pile into your hand. So an opportunity to try and control the board, say, with things like Airy, things like TM Devolution, and there's a number of different cards that could play a little bit apart, maybe less useful sometimes against Dialga, but let's see if it comes to fruition.
At the end of this weekend, I'm going to ask every one of these Regieleki users, how many times did they actually use it? Because in practice, I don't know how often it will come through. As an idea, brilliant. and that's always the question when you start including these interesting additions to your deck. How useful actually are they?
Yeah, for sure. We do just end the turn with that Rotom V instant charge there. Brent drawing 3 cards and ending his turn. Over to Corentin now. This is going to be your deck. Might continue. You're wearing that Beldum badge.
Oh, I do love a Metagross. And so it's been nice seeing the Metagross line with Beldum and Metang coming through. Although not many people including the Metagross as a little final evolution, damage output. But it can be included in some versions of the list. But ultimately, it's all about Dialga. That is such a powerful card that has really just not had its opportunity to shine, as it's lacked the energy acceleration required to quickly power itself up. But now Metang is in the format coming out in Temporal Forces. It allows you to use one of the most powerful V-Star attacks in the format, Metal Maker, allowing you to look at the top 4 cards, take any energy you find there, attach it to your Metal Pokemon, and then put the rest on the bottom of your deck. So a very good card to set that Dialga up.
Yeah, Dialga just Corentin ending that turn with a metal coating there from the origin form Dialga V, attaching 2 metal energies from the discard pile to this Pokemon, and just setting himself up ready for future turns as Brent now opens up with another Buddy Poffin and will begin trying to set up his board so we can handle that potential dangerous attack from a Dialga V-Star.
Oh, look at that. The Rotom really helping out with that instant charge, drawing into the rare candy, the Pidgeot EX, the Charizard EX, all of those vital pieces for an early turn. So Brent showing off the dream start here. And that Charizard EX is a little bit out of range for the Origin form Dialga V-Star.
Yep, of course, just evolving up to the Terra Charizard EX there. Does take away the fire typing as it becomes a dark type Pokemon. There's the gust up of the Bidoof, removing that draw power that Corentin will have to try and typically rely on as he starts utilizing Metal Maker and all the sort of Dialga V-Star attacks. And there's Burning Darkness for the first prize of this round 9 at EUIC 2024.
It's not looking great, just a very small hand there. And I think that's just going to be an attack. Is that all that's possible?
Yeah, it does have Ultra Ball in hand, but no real sort of additional support Pokemon it could be utilized now that the Bidoof was knocked out. Could have maybe utilized Ultra Ball, probably wouldn't have wanted to give up the V-Star too easily. But draw power important there as he does just swing for 160 damage.
So Pidgeot EX really shining this weekend, being able to take any card from your deck with that quick search. It could be a vital supporter. It could be an important setup card. And in this situation, it's an Arven to help set up for those future turns. I mean, it could literally just be a Super Rod if you need to recover anything. And that's why it's so good and why a lot of top players really enjoy this deck, because it allows you to select exactly what you need and when you need it.
Yeah, unfortunately not the start Corentin had hoped for here. Hasn't lost a round yet at this tournament. Currently 4-0-4. But, you know, not looking in a fantastic spot here as we do see the V-Star Star Alchemy utilized by that Forest Sealstone attached to that Rotom V, as we see more combo pieces come down, raining down with fire here as the Charizard EX is evolved up on the bench as well.
So just putting those Charizard EX out of range, just the 6 fire energy and the 1 mist energy, so most of those energy actually in Brent's hand, so we'll have to just manually attach at this stage, but it's got plenty of time to work with. That's the advantage with a slow start from your opponent, is you can just let that Charizard EX ramp up as the Burning Darkness damage increases. There is no rush at that point.
What an unfortunate top deck there.
Oh, no.
The barrel. Of course, it was already knocked out the previous turn and wouldn't have been able to do anything anyway. Does have to choose that Mew EX and put it down on to the bench. An easy target for Brent, considering he has out 2 boss's orders or anything important to gust up that Mew EX and just swing away for 180 damage with ease.
But don't count out the Star Kronos. Such a powerful attack. Can really swing the game back into favor. And there was a research. So if a Metang is found here and some energy is accelerated, that Charizard EX could be knocked out and another turn could happen. And if you get more energy onto that Dialga V-Star, it does quickly ramp up.
Oh, there it is. Metal Maker's live. Start thinning out the deck a little bit more here with that Nest Ball. And then start trying to burst into that fantastic Star Kronos attack. The Dialga V also found as well, so trying to set up a backup attacker. We're looking good here. It was a bit of a struggle a moment ago.
Restart, that's all it took.
Restart, 1 restart, and just brought Corentin back into the game.
I mean, the barrel would have been nicer, so smart from Brent to target that down.
Of course.
The Star Kronos here, if it is possible, could be huge.
Energy attachment from hand available as well, I believe. Still, here's the ability. Top 4.
Any energy? Ooh.
Is that 2? Is that perfect numbers?
I think so.
With 1 energy attachment from hand as well.
And then next turn we'll be able to get even more energy in play. So we'll see what happens here. And this is what people forget. When you can take 2 turns in a row, it really ramps up very quickly. We had it last format with the Medicham V, and that was such a powerful card which could swing games in your favor. And I think Dialga has just been left forgotten as a card as to how good it could be. And then Metang has brought it back to life. And this turn changes everything. Disruption is also possible, despite using that research earlier, because you get to play 2 supporters across those 2 turns.
Energy attachment to the bench, so just a swing with Metal Blast here for the KO. So saving that V-Star power for the time, or attack for this moment here.
Interesting. I guess the Rotom V into the Pidgeot EX could be possible, and if you take those 4 prizes, you're very susceptible to a disruption at that point.
Yeah, so just kind of saving it for that one burst turn potential. So if Corentin can maybe get 2 Metangs on board, that's multiple outs to Metal Maker, get all those energies on the board, start targeting the right Pokemon, and then it's, you know, the writing on the wall could be on Brent's side.
Yeah, and the constant worry that it could happen at any moment is always going to be there for Brent. And what was that? That's going to be a Charizard EX knockout. There was 180 on that Dialga, and if the Charmeleon was possible to power up earlier, that could have been the way to knock it out. And this is it, right? Radiant Charizard towards the end of the game is a key attacker for Brent.
Yeah, and I'm not too sure if I maybe just saw that he was able to take it from the prizes.
I think
as
so.
Well. So there's an opportunity there to try and weave in a single prizer. But this is a big turn here for Corentin. Does hit the Dialga. Oh no, sorry, that was the discard. Does have Ultra Ball and Ultra Ball and Super Rod, which is kind of unfortunate cards to use around.
Interesting.
Get energies. Ultra Ball can try and dig for the Dialga V-Star. Yeah, there you go. You know, he wanted to try and put energies back into the deck to try and increase the odds of Metal Maker here. Does have Restart available. Ultra Ball in hand, 3 cards. How best can he sequence this to maximize the chances of hitting a Star Kronos this turn? On the right Pokemon as well.
Yeah. I mean, the Star Kronos on the Rotom would be huge. Potentially then into a Gust on the Pidgeot EX. Put it in range. So 4 prize cards needed. But it is possible to get those without Brent taking another turn. It's just going to have to require a lot of fortune, I think.
Doesn't necessarily lose the turn if he gives Brent 1 more, because it's still 3 prizes that Brent requires.
Just deciding whether to take the big risk, and it's going to go for it.
It's massive here. Maybe could have promoted something else. Did he top deck the primal, the prime catcher?
That was in the hand, and I think just deciding whether to go for the Iono here.
If he pushed something else forward first, and then maybe just guaranteed the prime catcher onto with the Mew EX and the active, then has the opportunity to maneuver around. Just the Iono.
What's it going to be here?
Big hand. Is that another Metang?
It's another Metang, but is the Dialga V-Star there?
Bidoof can be played down. Some cards can be played out as well. So again, finding those opportunities. Dialga comes down. Of course, does need that secondary attacker to go.
I mean, if you evolve the Dialga, it's out of range of a Charizard, but then you've got the Mew EX as a liability on the bench and the new Dialga V that's been put down.
So almost like a very similar scenario. It's quite a big. Here's Metal Maker. 1 out of the 4 here. The other 3 cards go to the bottom of the deck after being shuffled. So just to the active.
Just struggling to navigate the addition of energy, the evolution of the Dialga.
Hits 3 there, so there's 2 and 1 to the bench to Dialga V as well.
Yeah, plenty of energy coming through.
Draw 2 cards from Radiant Greninja. Doesn't hit.
Not quite, but we'll be able to still attack. It's not going to be a knockout, maybe with the a Defiance band on the active, so it will still will be a knockout.
Yeah, still gets the knockout here on the Rotom V. Just needs to start thinking about powering up that second one and start swinging away. Maybe having to force himself up against that Pidgeot EX as well. It does go down to 2 prizes, takes the advantage here. Brent has to deal with the Dialga with the most energies on this turn.
Yeah, and from Brent's point of view, really trying to utilize that Radiant Charizard now, but it was disrupted out of the hand of the Iono. Does have the Nest Ball, but to get an energy onto that will be quite tricky.
Pidgeot EX.
You kind of want to use that Pidgeot EX for maybe a supporter this turn.
Yeah, of course. Given the opportunity, but at least that's one way to try and guarantee it if possible.
Yeah, I guess with Pidgeot EX, if you ever need 1 piece for anything, you're already guaranteed. I think there was 1 fire energy in that previous hand, so we'll be able to utilize that here. So going to be using that Pidgeot EX quick search now. And this has been a fascinating matchup to navigate towards the end.
Yeah, this is truly interesting. Not too sure how much testing you really would have to put into. There's the evolution up from the Charizard EX to just get the energy and get it onto the board of that Radiant Charizard. We've seen it be a true battle of the Radiant Pokemon in previous formats as well. We know Radiant Greninja has an incredible attack and an incredible ability. In reality, Radiant Charizard does as well, being able to, in a similar way, ramp up as the game progresses. And then we've got that Excited Heart into the Combustion Blast for 250 damage.
Are you going to bench that Regieleki? I mean, Brent at this stage is just maybe trying to thin the hand a little bit, but that will be a knockout, so energy required. We need to see the Dialga V-Star. But by putting down a one prizer, that could potentially set up the one prizer into one prizer knockout, but you're assuming that if enough turns are taken with that Metang, you'll ramp up the damage. But Bidoof is going to go down here.
Quite tough here. There's that Nest Ball that now is unplayable. So maybe would have liked to have seen that just played just to get out of the hands. Maybe thin down a little bit more before that Bidoof came down. There's the energy attachment from hand. Looks like maybe an Iono. It could be a trapping of that Charizard. Could find a way to maneuver one additional turn if that Charizard is unable to maneuver out of the active spot, because Combustion Blast means that you can't attack with Combustion Blast once again.
Not much in that hand to work with. Already played a supporter, so the Cypher Maniac's code breaking, not doing a huge amount here. And we'll start those Metal Makers.
Misses. Big miss.
I mean, you wonder at this stage how much energy is left in the deck. And that's always the question when you're doing these Metal Makers. How many energy are there?
Just one. I mean, he's one away from a Star Kronos. Next turn, if he's able to find the Dialga V-Star, does have draw power with the Mew, does have Cypher Maniac's code breaking in hand as well. So there's ways, but he needs, it looks like, an extra turn here, because he could Star Kronos into the single prizer and then find a way just to gust up the Regieleki that's been placed down by Brent.
Oh, the Ultra Ball. So that will get the Dialga V-Star, but just one energy short here on that Star Kronos.
I think you just have to hold.
And just hope there's no way to get the Charizard out of the active.
Yeah, maybe just send up the metal, Origin Form Dialga V and just metal coating. It's just a scoop.
Just a scoop. I think the Prime Catcher was available for Brent, so would be able to move that Radiant Charizard out of the active. And so Brent does take game one, but it was a tricky game. It wasn't ever in Brent's favor because the Star Kronos was always available, but just unfortunate for the Dialga V-Star not quite getting powered up, never able to use that Star Kronos, so Corentin not able to get the attack off, but you can see how close it is. Yeah. The potential is there for the deck. It just needs to hit those energies off the Metal Maker, hit all the cards needed throughout the process.
Yeah, what's really interesting is that, of course, with this type of Charizard EX set that Brent's playing, as we do get a chance to recap what's just happened in game one, as Brent took it down there with that Prime Catcher, obviously utilizing Pidgeot's Quick Search to great effects, but we're seeing Prime Catcher as the A-spec of choice. But is that to utilize it alongside Regieleki? You know, being able to use it multiple times is a great effect as well. You know, maybe bringing up something less useful, trapping something, using area a couple of times, setting up your own board in the meantime. And it's just one way to play Charizard. That's a little bit different to the conventional play a maximum belt A-spec instead.
Yeah, well, the Dialga V had to be utilized there with the 180 damage attack, Temporal Rupture. But typically what we want to see is that Star Kronos, and the V-Star was not allowed to be used there, as it was never possible. And that's going to be where that early Bidoof knockout could have been so vital in that game. You know, taking away the draw engine from the Bibarel. We saw how tough it was for Corentin to get the cards needed. And especially once you start Metal Maker, using your Metal Maker to get the energy out the deck, that's when we start to see those Bibarels be very effective. Ooh, 2 Charmanders there for Brent.
Yeah, and 3 Metal Energies after the 14 there. I mean, there are still quite a lot, but we do go into game 2 of our Swiss round 9 now. Corentin does have to make it really vital here to try and take the win and try and still give himself an opportunity to push into day 2, as Brent has the advantage.
It's win an in stage for these guys. Brent sitting there with the first win. Plenty of time still on the clock. And the heavy ball. We mentioned those Charmanders. There's also a Pidgey in there. So the dream scenario for that heavy ball. And also speeds up the prize check process.
Yeah, makes things a little bit easier going forward for the rest of this game. Plenty of time still. And we know that sometimes both of these decks can start swinging for a lot of damage quite quickly. So really important to just try and get through these games as quick as possible with Brent's version, just trying to make sure he's able to take down this Dialga V-Star deck in front of him right now.
That hand looking good for Brent. So a Buddy Buddy Poffin and a Nest Ball.
Brilliant.
Setting up with the Charmander there. It looked like he started his prize check. You have just heavy balled.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's always like just kind of double checking, triple checking. You know, this is a tense scenario for both of these players. Of course, you know, Brent has been on the stage before. Corentin's also, you know, had a couple of really good finishes in recent times as well. So this is important, remember, winning in, and there's the Rotom V from that Nest Ball.
Is the Pidgey in hand or just opting to not go for the Pidgey this game?
It's one of those where you're kind of letting loose if you're going to start utilizing some of those sort of lower HP Pokemon, easier to target and knock out. Interesting, I just reminded myself that we had a little look at what A-Specs a lot of decks have been using throughout. Charizard EX, out of the sort of almost 600, just over 400 of them play Maximum Belt.
Oh my.
And just over 100 play Prime Catcher. So Brent's one of those 111, I believe, players who are playing Prime Catcher this weekend.
Shout out to the 3 Master Ball users.
Consistency is king.
And the 3 people who couldn't get their A-Specs in time, so decided not to play any.
Yeah, well, sometimes you just don't need it. You can replace Prime Catcher, remember?
That's true. With Ancient Drum.
Rotom V, instant charge there. Brent now just replenishing that hand with a further 3 cards as it goes back over to Corentin. And now we do see a Nest Ball just being played on this side. A Radiant Greninja hits the field, a card we've seen so often since its release and inception into the format.
You know a card is good when its attack is one of its greatest strengths, and it features in decks where you can't even attack with it. Yeah. That's how good the ability is on Radiant Greninja.
There's a pitching of the Metal Energy to draw 2 further cards. Another Dialga V hits the board as well. TM Evolution, an opportunity to try and bring in that Metal Maker, Metang, and also the Babao and set up future turns. Corentin's quite happy to kind of give up a prize or 2 sometimes with this deck.
Yeah, once set up, you know you can start coming back because that V-Star attack gives you another turn. Can really punish decks towards the end of the game, especially as you can take out the barrels whilst also taking out big attackers. You can, in this matchup, you can take out something like a Rotom V and then straight away afterwards take out the Pidgeot EX. And these kinds of turns are crazy swing turns back in favor of Dialga, but it does sometimes struggle to set up, as we saw in the last game, and it seems pretty solid here on the side of Corentin.
I mean, it wasn't, as we already mentioned, it wasn't very far though, so that it didn't feel like he had to stretch. He could stretch as far as he would have liked. He had to play Iono, which only limited him to like 4 cards, can only utilize Mew EX with the restart ability rather than the barrel. But here we go, we've got the board set up, which is looking a little bit more better for Corentin's side.
We'll see what cards are available. That Heat Tackle, mighty effective into Dialga because it does hit for 60 rather than the 30, which can set up an early knockout with a Charizard EX on the fully evolved Dialga V-Star. Typically, we see Heat Tackle being a great attacker into the V-Stars because it sets up future knockouts. Getting double value into this, or the Golden Go is another situation where that happens, and that's where the Heat Tackle becomes most valuable.
Yeah, let's just see how this is going to be navigating. We do see the Heat Tackle there, as you just correctly mentioned, 60 damage because of the fire weakness, 10 damage to itself. And now back over to Corentin to try and formulate his game plan. As you see, that Prime Catcher there was straight at the bottom. Little Beldum there, I see yourself just pointing at your little pin.
Oh, my little Beldum pin badge. Little cutie.
You going to evolve it up?
I feel like Beldum is one of my favorite Meta-type Pokemon, just because every single one of its cards has so much character despite looking very similar. It's one, I think that's so beautiful about some of these Pokemon where they don't move too much, but they still have a little bit of character to them.
as the evolution there now, Metang hits the Metal Maker for 1 energy. Not as much value as Corentin maybe would have liked when you see the pitch
This is
of the
going
concealed
well.
cards now. But yes, we're moving at pace.
We're gliding.
There's the Professor's research in hands. A lot of cards to pitch away, though. Energy attachment to the bench. Discarding 2 energies, 1-1 barrel line. We saw how vital it was for Brent to take down the Bidoof. Would there be an opportunity to try and take down the Bibaro at some point as well? Evolution up, Dialga V-Star in the active spot now and on the bench. Massive.
Yeah, and the Defiance Band, useful way to get the damage modifier. You know, being 280 HP Pokemon puts you out of range of Charizard EX for quite a while. And Radiant Charizard will be able to knock out later on, but in these early stages, it just gives a bit of time for Dialga V-Star to set up.
Yep, Defiance Band only really activating when you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, but because there's a 2 prize only active, and Brent's likely to have to go through it, he's probably going to activate it unless Brent chooses to find a way around it, of course.
So just asking lots of questions of each other at this stage. And I do wonder, whenever you see a deck like Dialga V-Star, how much a player like Brent has prepared for this matchup.
Yeah, exactly.
Or how much he's having to work it out on the fly right now.
Yeah, I sort of kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier and just said, like, is it in your thinking for testing the matchups? I mean, it started to gain a lot of traction in sort of the last couple of weeks, I believe. But then, you know, you still got to think about the wider meta game. I mean, how many Dialgas are you truly going to be facing?
Not even in our top 12 decks, is it?
I don't believe so. But, you know, it's got some inherent power. It's one of the few decks we've shown multiple times this weekend as the V-Star ability, Star Alchemy, is used on that Forest Sealstone.
Forest Sealstone, so consistent, so many lists, especially those with the basic Vs, which are utilized for their abilities. You can utilize the Forest Seal after the fact to nurture any card out of your deck. Same way the Quick Search does here. And that's going to help set up for Brent now, looking to try and get a big knockout.
Yeah, why not just have a nice, easy, quick search via a tool card from that powerful supporter we've highlighted in one of our previous rounds, Mike. Arven there, still kind of sat on the board with that rare candy just on top of it, but it's been utilized, of course. Looks like Brent's finding a route to maybe start swinging with that Charizard, Radiant Charizard early as well.
We mentioned when it was prized in the first game how important it is in this matchup. Not only is it a single prizer, but it is that fire-type attacker that is available in a deck full of fire energy, so can knock out any metal Pokemon in play, hitting for 250 damage, doubled into that 500, and we'll be able to take a knockout. And in this situation, we'll be able to take a knockout on the more energy-attached Dialga V-Star on the bench with the Defiance Band, and now we'll be in that active spot, ready to go.
Yeah, and that Dialga, Origin Form Dialga V-Star now in the active spot has already taken some damage, only got 220 HP left. So just trying to limit what Corentin has available on his side. Brent's also seen a lot of energies being pitched away into the discard. So just removing so many energies as well just limits those metal makers that may be sort of raining down energy from Corentin's side of the board, ignoring Infernal Rain.
3 Super Rod in the list will be able to get some of those energies back, but will you see them? That's always the question, right? Well, there's one of them.
There it is. Speak of the devil. But which direction do you go in? Is it just the energies? I mean, like I said, there's been a lot of energies pitched away through concealed cards, obviously lost through that KO on that Dialga V-Star as well. Truly important moments and steps to be taken here from both sides of the board.
I guess what is the thing you have to take out here? Maybe that Radiant Charizard is something to worry about. I mean, with the Prime Catcher being used to switch it into the active, it's pretty hard for Brent to reset that Radiant Charizard. Can retreat it, but that's a lot of energy taken out of play. And
Metal Maker with at least one there. 3 cards going to the bottom of the deck. I mean, what's important to note now is that kind of prize mapping. We've heard it from the videos we've had before, shown across this weekend. It's already taken 1 prize. If it could utilize maybe taking a KO on another single prizer, brings it back to even. A double hit from the second Metal Maker here. 1 energy away from Star Kronos, but will he opt to utilize it now is the real question. Has it in hand?
Is this the turn? That is the question. You know, we trust the Dialga V-Star Masters who are playing it at this event, who will be most familiar with the deck and the timings and when to play these cards. Will this be the turn to take another one?
That's a fantastic stadium. I'm not too sure if we saw it earlier when Criso was on the stream, also playing Dialga V-Star. Full Metal Lab, Mike. What does it do?
So your metal Pokemon, both yours and your opponent, take 30 less damage from attacks for your opponent's Pokemon. And with such few stadium in the format now, that can often stick around for quite a while.
I mean, in combination with this Iono as well, has 5 cards there for Corentin. Just plays down the technical machine just to kind of get it out of the hand for the moment. Looks like he's about to flip it. There's a Star Kronos attack.
The Star Kronos has been done. Corentin will take out the active and get another turn as he resets those ability markers, discards the technical machine evolution, has an opponent disrupted opposite him, and has a Cypher Maniac's code breaking in his hand, so he'll be able to do exactly what they want throughout this turn.
Yeah, this is a true spectacle of such a powerful way of sort of trying to steal a turn and take additional prizes here. Has to make it, you know, get maximum value as much as possible, because we'll have to try and take 2 more knockouts to be able to win the game. 4 prizes remaining. Has to maximize it as much as he can. Cypher Maniac's code breaking, 2 cards very quickly chosen there from Corentin.
Prime Catcher. Which target will it be? The Pidgeot EX, always a valuable target against any Charizard EX deck. So we'll look to try and disrupt the consistency of Brent's board.
Yep, that will put Corentin in a scenario where he will only have access to his boss to try and maybe take down that last remaining Rotom as well for the final 2 prizes. But let's see which way it is. Which ones he want to use first. Greninja or Bibarel does have energy in hand, so can pitch for the 2 cards first. Wants to give himself a free retreat out. Bibarel for 5, takes the 2 cards he's just put to the top of that deck.
There it is. The Super Rod will really help with those metal makers now, and this is why we see the 3 count of Super Rod in the deck to try and bump up the metal energy count. And does have the Ultra Ball here, can maybe increase the metal maker odds as well by taking a Pokemon out of the deck.
Yeah, what's key here really is trying to power up that second Dialga V-Star on the board as well. Does have the retreat option now with the Radiant Greninja attachment of energy after utilizing that Prime Catcher now in hand.
So it needs 1 more energy on the active to be able to take a knockout on the Pidgeot EX.
There's 2. So how many we've got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 energies there, Mike. Metal Blast dealing 40 plus 40 more damage for each metal energy attached to this Pokemon. So 7 times 4, 280 damage, just the 1.
Enough to get the Charizard EX, taking out the biggest attacker on the board, realizing lots of the energy is gone, forces a lot out of Brent here. With just the Pidgeot EX available, we'll have to try and find Super Rod, Rare Candy, and a Charizard EX here to return the knockout.
Has at least 2 of those in hand already with an Ultra Ball and Super Rod, Mike. Is there a way to rebalance the books here from Brent's side?
Yeah, and you see the acknowledgement. Oh, of course you have it.
Yeah, I mean, it was an Iono to 4. Still has Pidgeot EX as well with that quick search ability, targeting that Radiant Charizard, which is an efficient, easy attacker to utilize.
Yeah, we'll be able to just use the Ultra Ball to get the Radiant Charizard out and attack for 1 energy. So it doesn't even need to go the full way with the Charizard EX.
Yeah, this is that excited heart just activating, just needs the fire energy. Here's the grab of the Radiant Charizard from the Ultra Ball. Pidgeot EX can guarantee the fire energy. There we go, just second guessing himself, I think, Brent. I mean, there's a lot's riding here.
Well, if you get the Charizard EX out, you can both power up a Charizard EX and a Radiant Charizard, correct?
If he's able to grab one out, but it's just choosing to utilize maybe a big attacker. Maybe foregoing the Radiant Charizard now.
Interesting.
So rare candy up into the Charizard EX, a big, bulky, 330 HP Pokemon now staring down at a board full of metal Pokemon. And then the support of Radiant Greninja and Bibarel.
Makes sense, because you want to be able to hit 2 attacks in a row, whereas if you put that Radiant Charizard in the active spot, there is a world where it gives a turn to restabilize for Corentin because on the other side.
After all, Brent's final card in his hand is a boss's orders.
Well, there we go. That's the knockout there. Brent is asking the question. No energy on board. Lots of energy has just been sent to the discard pile. And there's going to be a Super Rod, and there was a boss in hand as well.
I remember the Super Rod was taken from the prizes, so this is big. 2 Metal Makers available. Lots of cards. Not too bad, actually.
Almost guarantees the whole deck here with Metal Maker.
It's big. He's got to give it a good shuffle. Brent's going to, I'm sure, going to want to just either cut it or shuffle himself as well, because this is vital. Metal Makers.
I mean, how many energy do we need for that Rotom? Just the 4, right?
Yeah, 4 times 4, it would be 160.
Plus
the 40, that's on the base damage of the Dialga V-Star is enough. Just double checking, trying to guarantee it. There's the first Metal Maker. Here we go, Mike. 4 cards.
Needs 3 energy from these Metal Makers now.
Has he taken the counter of it again? He's just double checking, second guessing himself. Which one does he utilize first?
I guess you just don't want to draw into any energy here, so you're probably going to have to Metal Maker first, right?
The barrels first.
Oh, draws into 1. Not happy.
He's gone for it. So does he have enough energies left in the deck? That's the question here.
Because they put 3 back in with the Super Rod. If there is 1 already in the deck from before, then it will be the case. You've just got to go for it now. Let's see.
Hits
There's 2.
That's a start. Only needs 1 more because he's got 1 from hand. Second Metal Maker, the next 4.
There it is.
It's big.
That's going to be it.
There's the 4th.
The final energy.
200 damage on that Rotom V.
Cross's orders in hand with all that energy, and that will be enough to take the knockout here. We're going to game 3 in our final match here at EUIC.
What a nail biter. This is it. This is the one. An opportunity for both players now for one final attempt to try and make it into day 2 of this EUIC 2024.
Tell you what, can we get more Dialga V-Star on stream? Because watching these Metal Makers every time, it's so tense. Just waiting to see whether they're going to get the energy or not. It's like the excitement of Miraidon EX with the electric generator, but on another level, because you get to see multiple per turn.
You can also do more than 4, which is fantastic.
Exactly.
During a game. But yeah, Brent gave it a real good go there, trying and utilize all the pieces that was available to him to do get a chance to replay this game 2. Corentin going first was pretty vital as well. Being able to get that barrel set up, you know, which is something he didn't have access to in game 1, allowed him to just keep drawing through that deck.
You just see that swing turn once you get the Star Kronos off with the Dialga V-Star. It changes the game completely. That moment there, suddenly the game was no longer in Brent's control, and that's when Corentin played the final game out very well, got the Super Rods to put the energy back in, and with that Rotom V in play, it was the liability on board that gave the win. Oh, that frustration, not quite sure whether there was enough energy in deck, and there was.
Here we go, the prizes for game 3. Pokemon fans, we're here now seeing what is at stake for this final game of our day 1 here at EUIC. Brent kicking us off, Buddy Poffin.
That's going to be seen a lot throughout EUIC. Buddy Poffin, one of the most powerful cards out of Temporal Forces, just working so well in those early turns to set up. But the advantage of it over something like Battle VIP Pass of the past is that you can utilize it throughout the game at any moment. So not all of the decks are vulnerable to those slow first turns.
A perfect Buddy Poffin into Knoxville once again to grab that Rotom V. Maybe just want to double check those prizes. I do see the Forest Sealstone in there as well, so can utilize Rotom, being a V Pokemon, of course, to activate that Star Alchemy V-Star ability at some point during this game.
Yeah, Rotom V has really become one of the most important cards in those early turns for Charizard EX. We started seeing some decks including 2 counts of it, just because if it's prized, it's so detrimental to those early turns. as we see the 3 cards drawn off the top, off that instant charge, and Brent is set for next turn.
Yeah, I caught a glimpse of that hand as well. It's looking pretty sharp. Even hit the Forest Sealstone there. I think there's Ultra Balls, Rare Candies, Charizard EXs. A lot's going on as we go over to Corentin, who will match Brent's first turn with the Buddy Buddy Poffin as well.
Yeah, and the Buddy Buddy Poffin will be able to search out those Beldum and the Bidoof. But outside of that, I don't think that hand looked like it had much going on. There was a few cards I couldn't quite make out. But you need to start seeing the Dialga hopefully find a TM Evolution. That's an Ultra Ball there.
Maybe could go for something like the Mew EX. Yeah, otherwise these cards aren't the most useful for this turn. He needs to play down some cards and just kind of thin out as much as possible to maybe even use Restart as an ability.
Radiant Greninja, there's an energy in hand, so maybe. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one here.
This is a decision. Yeah, he's gone for the Mew EX. He's going to play down his hand as much as he can. Of course, he's, I think, 3 playable cards, right? An Energy, Super Rod, and I think 1 more playable card there.
I mean, there's a Super Rod. It's not going to be something you want to play at this stage.
Well, not ideal, but...
You've just discarded one. You don't want to play the other. Prime Catcher, you don't want to play that as well.
Needs must. Needs must, Mike.
Might be just a restart for 1.
It's, I mean, he does have, I guess, a little bit of time. Yeah, there you go. He's wanting to try and maximize the value of that restart. Just for 2 here. Big. Hits the Greninja and Energy, so can continue going.
Keep digging. Keep digging, sir. You can find it, I promise you. There it is.
Oh, hello.
And that's exactly what you want to be seeing, but we're leaving the Mew EX in the active. Not ideal, but it will be able to start setting up future turns. No Dialga down.
That's the only problem, right?
Yeah. There we go. You have to choose those 2 Pokemon before evolving. So we'll be going for a Bidoof and a Beldum there to evolve into a Bibarel and a Metang.
Brent's surely licking his lips here. An easy, squishy Mew EX in the active spot here. Only 180 HP. Perfect numbers for a Charizard EX to come up and start swinging away.
Weak to Dark type as well, so just making sure.
Yeah, just blowing up. There's the V-Star counter flipped over from Brent's side of the board. Star Alchemy utilized once again for Sealstone. Just such a fantastic card to basically utilize a quick search early on when you need to, then setting up the quick search for the rest of the game.
Yeah, so often we see the Forest Sealstone in combination with the Pidgeot EX quick search to set up everything, but actually Brent here able to set up both Pidgeot EX and the Charizard EX without using the quick search.
There's an opportunity as well, if you didn't just clock that penny at the bottom of that deck, an opportunity to just kind of remove Rotom V out of play at some point.
Has been a liability in both games.
As Brent now decides to utilize that quick search, just wants to kind of get the board set up first, prioritizing that for now, can always quick search for the penny later.
No Dialga in play, so you've got a little bit more time to play with.
For sure, for sure. There's a Charmeleon there. Of course, doesn't have to reveal exactly what he's chosen from that quick search ability. But, well, here we go. He just does take the penny.
Oh, put the energy on it as well earlier, but
So
we'll be able to attach that from hand. Oh, maybe not ideal having a look there. And that Rotom V has just gone into the discard pile, so that will need to go into the hand. And all the cards that were attached to it as well.
Yeah. Penny's a fantastic card that we've seen a lot in the sort of control archetypes, being able to soak up some damage and then pick up the basic Pokemon, all attached cards into your hand. So we'll make sure that's followed up as well, as we do see the attack. Burning Darkness, 180 damage, ×2 with the Mew EX there. Now putting a clock on Corentin's side of the board.
Well, let's get it. Let's get it and see what's possible. And we said how tough it is for Dialga to set up. And on this occasion, we're seeing exactly why that can be the case.
Yeah, sort of just removing that liability from the board state as well. I mean, Corentin's typical sort of gusting options was that Prime Catcher, which had to be used early to try and draw some more cards. Also that Counter Catchers that is played as well. But this is, yeah, backs up against the wall for Corentin, I think, Mike. It's going to be a tough one to try and come back from this. No Dialga Vs to be able to evolve up to a V-Star yet, as we do see an attachment to the active. And the barrel for 4 cards. Here we go. 2 energies. Super Rod. Is that an Iono? At least a supporter that could be played.
It's just got to find a way to get the Dialga set up. That's the challenge now. Needs a lot more than what they're seeing at this stage. Yeah. The Charizard EX sitting in the active for Brent, it is just scary. Staring you down, able to take these knockouts, knockout after knockout, and that's why Charizard EX has been so popular and so good.
Metal Makers for 2 to the active. That Metang looks like it might be swinging soon here, Mike. Who would have thought that might happen?
Well, I mean, it's an attack. it's not the ideal attack, but it is an attack.
Yeah, beam for 60.
60. That's not going to. Is that going to scratch the Charizard EX?
It starts to bring it in range. It becomes basically in range like a Pidgeot EX's.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, everything you can do to put it in range. I mean, the one prize board state is great at this stage, but then you have to put a Dialga V in play eventually. Thankfully, it is out of range of the Charizard EX. But at some point, Corentin is going to have to find a way to get that down.
There's the Iono being played now. A slight bit of disruption, of course. We know when you're disrupting Pidgeot EX, it's sometimes not enough, as you can just tutor out any card you'd like. Does hit the Charizard EX, so can evolve up the bench Charmeleon as well at some stage, or maybe use it to swing into the Metang for a knockout.
We'll see what's going on here for Corentin. There we go, the Dialga V able to get it into play.
Yeah, so here we go. What else can Corentin try and conjure up here in this scenario? Dialga V start in hand as well, so has the next turn sort of set up here. It's a beam for 60. Here we go. Over to Brent. Maybe start swinging away, dealing some damage to that Dialga V. Soften it up a little. Hisuian heavy ball being played now. No targets available. But, you know, just, again, more information that's available for Brent. So you do see the evolution up. Infernal Rain being activated here. Playing this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon. You can attach up to 3 fire energies from your deck to your Pokemon in any way you like. There's the boss's orders as well from the quick search. Targeting Corentin's draw engine here. Fantastic decision, I believe, from Brent here to just kind of limit what Corentin has access to.
Now we wait and see. Will those swing turns later on with Star Kronos come through? Is it possible to take a knockout early on? I mean, there's nothing in range of the Star Kronos, so it might have to be a 2-hit knockout. I mean, with the 60 damage on the active, that puts it down to 270, so even with the Defiance Band, it's not in range of the Star Kronos. Yeah, so just building up the board now, just trying to find a way to start taking down one of these Charizard EX. They're so far out of range.
Yeah, exactly that. This is the only trouble here. Yeah, 220, as you kind of correctly highlighted, it's just not enough. Could maybe do some chip damage once again, but then there's another Charizard EX just waiting in the wings right now.
You need that Metang as well. You want to be using that for the Metal Maker, not for its attack.
Yeah, especially when it's holding on to 3 energies. And there we go. There's another energy attachment to the active here. So can start swinging, start chipping away at this Charizard EX as well. With that Metal Blast attack, currently dealing 40 plus 40 damage. Oh, there's an extra 2 from the Metal Maker. So starting to swing away and get a lot of damage on. 160 plus 40 more, 200 damage there from Metal Blast. Just a little bit more needed to start swinging away. Can't be returned KO'd, which is fantastic.
I mean, that's really important at this stage with the Dialga V on the bench, because that's also out of range, so just protected from that double knockout. And we'll have to try and get a big swing turn later on, and you can see Brent preparing for that by putting some evolvable basics onto the bench, ready to go.
Yeah, 2 of those rare candies currently used, of course, 1 for the initial Charizard and the Pidgeot EX. Access to 2 more somewhere in deck, hand, or prizes. As there's the Arvin for what looked like the Super Rod and that Prime Catcher. Oh, actually, sorry, Defiance Band and the Prime Catcher.
Yeah, Defiance Band's an interesting one. It has featured in and out of Charizard EX in history, and I think it's one that has fallen out of favor recently for a lot of people as they've included things like Maximum Belt or Choice Belt, depending on what they're aiming to knock out. What is the benefit of Defiance Band in these lists?
I mean, especially when you sometimes opt to go second in these setup decks, of course. You do sometimes lose maybe your sort of single prizes like a Charmander or a Pidgey. That ramps up your damage to maybe 210, but sometimes you just need to stretch that little bit further to KO, especially a lot of the EX Pokemon, which have over 210 HP. And that Defiance Band is an opportunity there to swing away. As we do see the Prime Catcher gusting up one of those Metangs with the free energies, it looks like, and a massive KO once again, just trying to limit what Corentin has access to with a fresh Charizard EX.
Yeah, no hand here for Corentin. Just getting the top deck there. Taking away a Metal Maker will reduce the damage output of this Dialga. And this is the moment where Brent is just trying to chip away, take those prize cards one at a time to get themselves in range of that final knockout. As Charizard EX's damage output goes up, that's when we'll see the final knockout. But for now, Brent has to just wait. He has to wait and let Corentin take a knockout at some point. And yeah, Star Chronos gives you 2 turns in a row, but that's not enough to take 6 prizes. We'll have to try and find a way to disrupt as well.
Yeah, so this is vital here. Just deciding which attack to utilize. Won't be taking a knockout with this attack, regardless of which one he chooses. Currently 5 energies. Defiance Band that we've just spoken about from Corentin's side of the board, just to add the extra 30 damage there as well. Looks like just a Metal Blast swing away with 5 metal energies attached now. So 240 damage plus the 30 from Defiance Band.
So just not quite getting in range. And that Metang knockout from Brent will have reduced the amount of energy that was possible to get there. And this is the real struggle for Dialga. Without the barrel, it becomes very difficult to draw those cards you need each turn to take those big knockouts. Just a bit too much to set up, and Brent has done so well to disrupt it along the way.
I mean, right now, doesn't look like there's any time left. We'll get confirmation of what the scenario is. 2 prizes left for Brent's side. Has evolved up that second Pidgeot EX. Wary if Corentin is able to find a way to swing into it, following a Star Chronos, of course. Making sure that he always will have access to 1 more quick search on his turns.
So just checking through the deck here. Once you're in these end game scenarios, you have to make sure you have all the options available. And we'll be just attaching some energies and using that quick search to thin those out, giving you options, right?
Yeah, just to recall and make sure everyone knows as well that Pidgeot EX, you may search your deck for any card and put it into your hand, but you can only use 1 quick search ability each turn. So I won't be able to, of course, utilize a second Pidgeot EX. And there's a swing away here by Brent on that Dialga V-Star. Corentin, it's your turn. Is there anything you can conjure up in your final couple of turns? Confirmation, I think, there just from Corentin. He is turn 1. There you go. A little notification there by the die in the middle of the table as well. So Corentin has to take it to a point where he levels up the game and Brent somehow is unable to take a retaliation knockout.
And we have an interesting scenario here with turns because Corentin is going to be taking 2 turns in a row. So that changes up how the final 3 turns will go. So Brent was turn 0 before, Corentin will be turn 1 and 2 if he gets a Star Chronos off, and then Brent will be the final turn there. It was interesting with Medicham, seeing how that could change those final games. Sometimes you deny your opponent from getting the turns that they wanted, and we'll see how that goes here. Yeah,
for example, if Corentin was turn 2 and utilized Star Chronos, he would effectively wrestle away turn 3.
You could be turn 0, 2, and 3.
Yeah, but it just so happens that Brent has 1 more turn in some way, shape, or form. Prepping the missed energy on that Pidgeot EX is also another way to have an attacker with, as long as he hits an energy or finds an energy or has one available. There's a Star Chronos that was utilized and flipped over. Turn 2 of time now. There's the boss's order on the damaged Charizard EX on the bench.
I mean, the situation here, the only way to really deny the Pidgeot the knockout would have been with that full metal lab.
This is the final turn. Pidgeot, is there a fire energy in the deck?
There it is. And Brent is going to be taking our round 9 here at EUIC, a regional champion, Mr. Worldwide, reigning in from the Oceania region, has made it through to day 2 of EUIC, navigating that matchup beautifully in the final turns there, the final moments, able to squeak through on that 6-2-1 record.
Yeah, capitalizing on his great start, going first. Dialga just being a bit slow, not being able to get an Origin Form Dialga V on the board. But who would have thought we'd say Blustery Winds was the last attack of our day 1 here at EUIC 2024.
Pidgeot EX coming in clutch at the end as a secondary attacker just to finish off that Dialga. And it was an interesting set. Every game felt very different, but one thing that was consistent throughout was Brent very cleverly taking out that Bibaro engine as often as possible, and that's something we see from the best players in the world, consistently targeting engines over attackers and taking games because of it.
Yeah, we saw that. You know, had to utilize that Prime Catcher early on, had to thin down his hand just to be able to utilize cards. So this was game 1, of course, apologies, as there was that KO on that Rotom V. Radiant Charizard coming forward and taking vital knockouts. Game 2 went over to Corentin, of course, able to set up that board, set up that double Metang, the Bibaro, the Radiant Greninja, had everything on board to start swinging away, utilizing Star Kronos to full effect.
What a crazy swing it brings to the game. Star Kronos, an amazing attack that I'm sure we'll see a little bit more of during this format. We've seen a lot of Dialga V-Star rising to the top despite it being such a low percentage deck in the meta here. Not even in the top 12 decks, yet many at the top tables.
I mean, like I just said earlier, it's one of the very few decks we actually showcased more than once in this day 1. We tried to show as many different decks as possible, but we saw the sort of potential. There's so much potential available in the Dialga V-Star deck that we had to show it again. But you know, he put himself in this position.
And I think we can all agree one of the most entertaining decks to watch, just purely because of that Metal Maker ability. Never knowing whether you're going to see enough energy and watching as it comes off the top multiple times per game, and then that double turn is always so exciting. My favorite part of the double turn is picking up all the ability markers and then drawing for turn, watching the smug look of, I get to do 2 of these in a row.
Yeah, and now we see the Blustery win for the final knockout and the final 2 prizes. To Brent's side of the board, a fantastic showcase of that deck. We didn't get to see the Regieleki other than it hitting the bench and just being, you know, just a bench sitter, really.
Well, it's not for this matchup.
Maybe not.
I don't think they were planning it for Dialga when they put it in there, and I think that's the clever utility of a lot of these decks is they have been looking at what's going to be here at the event and planning around it, and Charizard EX has come out as one of the highest percentage decks we've seen in a long time at over 22%, and consequently, when we start seeing these top players playing it, they aren't playing the list you're expecting them to play. We're seeing some play a hybrid of Pidgeot and Bibaro, we're seeing some including that Cleffa. And then obviously what we just saw there is that slightly controlling version of Charizard EX using the Regieleki and some interesting supporters to try and work with it.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see which types of direction our players are taking a lot of these decks here, especially as we've gone into this new rotation, new cards that have kind of truly impacted. We've had a lot of fun with some of those cards that I say argued, I don't really have much of a case on a couple of them, but...
Pitched against each other.
Yeah, pitched against each other, thank you very much. I use pitch for some of the cards that are going into the discard, of course. But it's a really unique way of just kind of seeing the mindset of a lot of these players. You know, we've spoken about whether you go down the tech route and sort of try and spike an event, or you go down the sort of consistency route and just know that you're gonna just execute your game plan because you don't know what you're up against in a 2,500+